What do you think exactly happened? Why there has been a mishap 4 times in a row in less than a year?
Well, there's a lot of factors that are involved, but 2 of the key factors are training and readiness. The Navy over the last few years has depleted the training and readiness budgets, and we have seen an increase of these type of incidents. When you don't train and you don't pay for readiness, something like this is going to happen.
Well, I want to go to Senior Captain Zhang here in China. Of course, Asia Pacific region, China is part of it. How do you see it from the Chinese Navy's perspective?
Well, I partly agree with the Rear Admiral as his idea on the reasons, the causes of these 4 mishaps. But I want to add 2. One is the carelessness of the U.S. Sailors on the ship. They didn't pay attention to the situation on the seas. Second, I think, is the non-compliance of the rules, long-established protocols, including the 1972 COREX, the Convention on the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea. So I think these are the main causes.
Well, go to you, Mr. Rear Admiral. Have all those procedures and rules been followed in this latest specific case?
Well, in this case, definitely not. In fact, in both cases, when you have collisions at sea, there's really only 2 possibilities. One, if you're in close quarters with another ship and a ship has a catastrophic casualty and just cannot avoid a collision. Or there's a total loss of seamanship, lack of leadership, and somebody is basically not paying attention. So in this case, it looks like that the call regs were violated and the Navy was at fault, at least in the Fitzgerald's case. I know that. We have not seen the initial results on the McCain, but in the case of the Fitzgerald, it is clearly that they did not follow the rules of the road.
Rear Admiral, what are some of the specific rules to avoid collision among ships, at least in the U.S. Navy? Some basic ones, help us to understand.
Well, this is right. So in the U.S. Navy, they follow the international rules of the road, like the senior captain said, the call regs. So it is every ship's responsibility to stay out of the way of other ships. There are, ships may be imperiled, cannot maneuver. Our ships are very maneuverable and they should be able to get out of the way. So it's the responsibility of every vessel, merchant vessel, naval vessel, to stay out of the way of each other.
Rear Admiral, if I could just continue to ask a bit about that direction, there are reporting about specific rules on the ship. First of all, there's radar system that will be monitored to avoid any collision. Secondly, there are 5 different areas in which the onlookers should be out there and look at the other ships. Thirdly, there should be a stance in the front of the ship and also at the back of the ship. 2 places there will definitely be individuals at any time of the day to look out of any special situation. Some say, Mr. Rear Admiral, only those 3 layers of precautions all failed at the same time. Will one ship, such as those in the U.S. Navy, collide with other ships, whether commercial or military? What would you say?
Yes, I have to agree with that. When you have a collision, something has failed dramatically. And you have lookouts throughout the ship and you have radars. Somebody and some things were not paying attention. And to have a collision, if you have a lookout, especially on the after part of the ship in the case of the Fitzgerald, that after lookout should have been, just at the loudest voice he could possibly say, there's a ship here. And yes, definitely there was failure of not only, it was a human failure, but it could possibly be radars themselves.
Well, Senior Captain Zhang, from your experiences with the Navy, I know you've been doing decades of research in that regard. Does it mean that all the people that are on these posts have to be careless all at the same time, that the 3 preventional measures will fail all at the same time?
Well, I think at least the recent 2 mishaps, which took place in June and this month, show that the the people on watch on the decks of the U.S. Navy naval ships may be careless because we know that apart to these radars and also the instruments you mentioned, actually modern ships, including the U.S. naval ships, have also the photo-electro detection devices, and also they can use telescopes to keep on watch. So I think in the first accident midship in June that happened at 1:30 in midnight. So the people may doze off when they are keeping on watch. And this time is early morning. So it was reported that maybe some young officers aged at 22 or 24 were on watch. And we know that that time maybe they also doze off.
I see. Mr. McKnight, is that a possibility?
Yes, that's a distinct possibility. We try to train our young officers, and I know in the case of the Fitzgerald, the most experienced commanding officer on the ship, the commanding officer, was not on the bridge, which was a failure of the officer to deck to inform the commanding officer to be on the bridge in that close quarter situation.
I see. So here is a question, Rear Admiral, we have to ask, at least from China's perspective. U.S. Navy has claimed to be guaranteeing the freedom of navigation in the Asia-Pacific region, South China Sea included. And yet, it is only the U.S. Navy over the past few months this year that have had big accidents like these. Many people died. American soldiers, their lives lost, but these could be civilian lives in other cases. So many people ask, should the U.S. Navy to be here to begin with? Secondly, if they claim to what they have been doing, are they really fulfilling their responsibilities? Are they creating more danger rather than peace and stability in this region? Rear Admiral McKnight.
Right. Well, that's very good questions. First of all, we will always be out there. I mean, we adhere to the freedom of navigation and safety and stability throughout the world. So we will be in the 7th Fleet area. I think it is important for us to be out there. We are a global force, and I know that the Chief of Naval Operations and the fleet commanders will take a look at this situation very seriously and find out the root causes of that, and to make sure that these events don't happen again. And I know that the Chief of Naval Operations is going to definitely find out this and take actions to make sure that these events don't happen again. And we will continue to sail.
If I could, Mr. Rear Admiral, those words were said after the first incident. Those words were said after the second incident. Those were said after the third, and now after the fourth. Who knows what's going to happen?
Right. Well, unfortunately, these incidents will happen. They should not happen in some cases. But I am assured, and I can assure you, that the Chief of Naval Operations has this as a top priority, and we will get to the bottom of this and figure out what we need to do to prevent these accidents from happening again. Well,
Senior Captain Zhang?
Yes. Well, I don't fully agree with the Rear Admiral, because we know that there is a different understanding of some clauses in the unclauses. For instance, the United States Navy has sent its ships to the South China Sea to carry out the so-called freedom of navigation operations in the territorial seas of China. And we think that this was a serious political and military provocation, because we know that freedom of navigation has never been a problem in the South China Sea. So we think that the U.S. naval warships have been to where they should not have been, and they have done what they should not have done, because especially the freedom of navigation operations are not necessary, because we know that one of the allies, the Philippines, is President has publicly said that the Philippines will not follow the United States in the joint patrols in the South China Sea. And recently, its foreign minister has said that the Philippines doesn't want to see the situation in the South China Sea to be tension or more tensions.
All right.
So
I think I seem to understand what you're trying to say. Two layers, Mr. Rear Admiral, to respond. One is that you're not supposed to hear. People are not welcoming you. That's one point, at least according to Senior Captain Zhang here. And secondly, when you are here, you're not careful. You're not taking care of the peace and stability here. You're creating trouble. So, Rear Admiral.
Well, I don't see it that way. I think that any vessel has the, as the senior captain mentioned, the rules of the road, the call regs, and there are it lays it out right in there: freedom of navigation and the restrictions that apply for any ship and any warship that sails the seas. I think there are people, countries in the region that want us to be there, and we will continue to be there for now and for the future.
The 7th Fleet is the largest U.S. Navy's forward deployed fleet. At any given time, there are roughly 50 to 70 ships and submarines, 140 aircraft, and some 20,000 sailors. For more than 70 years, the fleet has maintained a continuous forward presence in the Indo-Asia Pacific. Well, if that is what you are talking about, Mr. Rear Admiral, but I guess things have changed. We have also seen a lot of debates going on in the South China Sea and also involving the U.S. military's presence here. So after these incidents, what's going to happen? Where is the wind going to blow? Rear Admiral, your assessment here.
Oh, I think the winds are stable. I think that that our neighbors in that region still want us to be there, and like I said earlier, we will continue to be there. We have our allies have asked us to help them and assist them in military operations. We train with our allies out there, including the Chinese Navy. We've had them in several exercises before. So we will continue to operate in the 7th Fleet area for now and for many, many years to come.
But Rear Admiral, what if things like these happen again?
Well, I hope these accidents don't happen again, and that's why the Chief of Naval Operations directed all the fleet commanders to take a pause, look at their seamanship and navigation. How do they operate? How did they operate as teams? And to make sure that we get down to the basics and we take a hard look at what we're doing to make sure these operations these type of incidents don't happen again.
Senior Captain Zhang, the 7th Fleet, of course, made their presence 70 years ago, and it continues to be there. But the role of the region and the logic of the region has been changing. So from China's perspective, what do you think about the presence of the 7th Fleet still in the region? And in the future, how is China going to assess the security situation as a result of the recent incidents and as a result of determination expressed by Rear Admiral that it's going to be here and continuously to be here?
Well, I don't think any country, including China, wants to push the United States Navy, especially the 7th Fleet, out of this region. So long as they exist in this region, we hope that their operations will be conducive to peace and stability in this region. But we just said that many countries in this region, including its ally, the Philippines, don't want to see tensions arise in this region. So what we are opposed most is the so-called freedom of navigation operations conducted by the U.S. Navy, which intruded in the territorial seas of China. So so long as the U.S. Navy conducted its patrols in the South China Sea, we are not opposed. So long as it doesn't intrude into the territorial seas of China.
All right. And my final question to both of you as well. Situations are getting ever more complicated in the region. If you look at the Korean Peninsula issue and some of the other issues in the South China Sea, Rear Admiral, when the assessment is being done by the U.S. Navy in the region, there's of course, quote unquote, an apparent lack of presence of U.S. ships on the water. How is the United States right now, particularly the Navy, assessing the security situation? briefly from you.
Well, we're definitely looking at the security situation very, very hard. And like you said, we definitely need more ships, and hopefully that our budgets will increase to increase the number of ships we have. One of the concerns is that in this study that they're going to look at is maybe we don't have enough ships out there. I'd like to mention one thing, that in 2009 I was out in the counter-piracy task force, and I worked daily with Admiral Du, who was out there, and the Chinese Task Force, and we had a great working relationship. So we can work with the Chinese Navy. We've done it all over the world, and I think we can work to solutions to make sure we have peaceful operations throughout the world.
Senior Captain Zhang, what about the latest situation? Is Chinese Navy going to work with the U.S. Navy in this regard, even though there are differences between the two?
Yes, sure. Just as Rear Admiral says, that the Chinese and the U.S. navies have been conducting very good cooperation in the Gulf of Aden and waters of Somalia to conduct, to carry out escort and counter-piracy operations there. And we should control and manage our differences, and then we should seek cooperation in many more areas. So I think the more cooperation we carry out, I think the more stable the situation in this area will be.